Have you ever felt like life was holding you back, trapping you in a cycle of unfulfilled dreams and unanswered questions? You wake up each day, going through the motions, yet there's a lingering sense of dissatisfaction, a quiet voice whispering that something's missing. Perhaps you've been searching for happiness in the usual places: success, relationships, material comforts. But no matter how much you achieve or acquire, happiness seems just out of reach, like a star twinkling on the horizon, always one step ahead. The truth is, happiness isn't something we stumble upon by chance, nor is it handed to us on a silver platter. It's something we must consciously create. And sometimes, the first step is the hardest, confronting the uncomfortable truths about life that we'd rather ignore. These truths can feel harsh, even painful. At first, they challenge everything we've been conditioned to believe. But here's the paradox. They're also the very truths that hold the power to set us free. Think about it. What if the reason you feel stuck isn't because of the obstacles around you, but because of the illusions within you? What if the answers you've been searching for were never out there, but always within? Buddhist philosophy offers us a mirror to see these truths more clearly, guiding us to a path of peace, clarity, and ultimately, happiness. By understanding timeless concepts like impermanence, anicca, the absence of a fixed self, anatta, and the law of cause and effect, karma, we begin to see life not as a series of struggles, but as an opportunity for growth and transformation. In this video, we'll explore 5 profound truths that may initially feel like a slap in the face, but will ultimately become the foundation for a happier, more meaningful life. These are not just abstract ideas. They're practical lessons rooted in real experiences and the wisdom of Buddhist teachings. We'll unpack why life feels so challenging at times and, more importantly, how you can rise above the chaos to embrace a deeper sense of joy. But let's be real, this journey isn't for the faint-hearted. It takes courage to look at life without the rose-colored glasses society gives us. It takes strength to embrace the idea that happiness isn't always easy or comfortable. Yet, by facing these truths, you're already taking a bold step forward toward liberation, clarity, and a life that aligns with your deepest values. So, let me ask you, are you ready to shed the illusions and uncover the reality of what it means to live a truly happy life? Stick with me, because what lies ahead isn't just a list of truths, it's a roadmap to freedom. Together, we'll untangle the misconceptions, break down the barriers, and discover the beauty hidden in life's raw realities. Let's dive in and begin this transformative journey. Happiness isn't waiting somewhere in the future. It's waiting for you to open the door right now. 1. You're not that important. Have you ever caught yourself replaying a small, embarrassing moment over and over in your mind, convinced that others are doing the same? Maybe you stumbled over your words in a meeting, or you posted something on social media that didn't quite land the way you hoped. You lie awake at night thinking, what must they think of me? But here's the truth that might sting at first. They're probably not thinking about you at all. Most people are far too consumed by their own lives to dwell on the tiny missteps of others. And while that realization may seem harsh, it's actually one of the most liberating truths you'll ever encounter. In Buddhist philosophy, this understanding ties closely to the concept of anatta, or non-self. It's the idea that the self we cling to, the identity we construct and desperately try to protect, isn't as real or fixed as we think. We often live as though we're the main character in everyone else's story, assuming they're constantly evaluating, judging, or even admiring us. But the reality is, most people are living in their own worlds, carrying their own worries and insecurities. Letting go of this constructed self doesn't mean diminishing your value. On the contrary, it frees you from the exhausting need to uphold an image that was never truly yours to begin with. David, a young professional, is a perfect example of this. On the surface, David had it all: an impressive job, a polished social media presence, and a knack for saying exactly the right things at the right time. But beneath that exterior, he was perpetually anxious. Every post, every conversation, every presentation felt like a test he couldn't afford to fail. He wasn't living for himself. He was living for the imagined opinions of others. One day, David attended a meditation retreat where the teacher introduced the concept of anatta. At first, the idea of non-self felt unsettling. If the self isn't real, then who am I? But as the days went by, David began to notice something remarkable. The less he focused on how others perceived him, the lighter he felt. When he let go of the need to control how he was seen, he found he had more energy to actually live. His anxiety began to dissolve, not because his responsibilities disappeared, but because he stopped tying his worth to how well he performed them in the eyes of others. For the first time, he felt free, not from his obligations, but from his illusions. Think about it. How often do we let the fear of judgment dictate our choices? Maybe you hesitate to speak up in a meeting because you're worried about sounding foolish, or you avoid trying something new because you're afraid of failing in front of others. We carry the weight of these imagined judgments as though the world is scrutinizing our every move. But when you pause and really examine this belief, you realize it's based on nothing more than your own projections. Understanding that others aren't paying as much attention to us as we think doesn't mean our lives lack significance. Instead, it's an invitation to stop performing and start living authentically. It's about recognizing that the moments we obsess over, our stumbles, our imperfections, are often fleeting blips in the eyes of others. And when we accept that, we can begin to focus on what truly matters. In Buddhism, there's a teaching that likens the self to a wave on the ocean. The wave rises, it crests, and it falls back into the water, inseparable from the whole. We're like those waves, unique yet interconnected, part of something far greater than our individual identities. The wave doesn't agonize over how it's perceived by other waves. It simply exists, moving in harmony with the larger current. Similarly, when we stop clinging to the illusion of a separate, fixed self, we align ourselves with the flow of life. This doesn't mean abandoning responsibility or ambition. On the contrary, it means approaching life with greater clarity and purpose. When you're no longer bogged down by the need for approval, you're free to channel your energy into what truly matters: relationships, passions, and acts of kindness. You're free to make mistakes, take risks, and grow without the paralyzing fear of how you'll be perceived. Take a moment to reflect on this. Can you think of a time when you were so caught up in worrying about what others thought of you that it held you back? What might have changed if you'd let go of that fear and trusted yourself instead? When you release the illusion that you're the center of everyone's attention, you gain the freedom to explore your potential without the weight of imagined judgment. This isn't about denying your worth. It's about recognizing that your worth isn't contingent on external validation. It's about understanding that the spotlight you think is on you is often just a trick of the mind. Most people are too preoccupied with their own insecurities and struggles to notice yours. And that's not a dismissal of your value. It's a reminder that you're not alone in navigating life's complexities. As David discovered, embracing the concept of anatta isn't about erasing who you are. It's about letting go of the layers of expectation and self-imposed pressure that obscure your true self. It's about finding the courage to live authentically, knowing that you don't need everyone's approval to be whole. When you stop seeing yourself as the center of everyone else's world, you open up space for what really matters. You become more present in your relationships, more focused on your passions, and more connected to the world around you. And in that space, you find something far greater than the fleeting satisfaction of validation. You find peace. 2. Life isn't always fair. As we step away from the idea that we are the center of everyone's attention, another truth becomes clear. Life doesn't always unfold the way we think it should. There's an innate human longing for fairness, a belief that if we do good things will come back to us. And while that's a comforting thought, reality often paints a different picture. Hardworking people don't always succeed. Kind-hearted individuals still face heartbreak. And sometimes those who seem least deserving reap the rewards. It's easy to look at these moments and feel disheartened, to wonder why life seems so unfair. But perhaps the issue isn't life itself. It's our expectations of how life should be. Buddhist philosophy offers a lens to see beyond this disappointment. The concept of karma, the law of cause and effect, reminds us that every action has consequences. but not always in the ways or timelines we expect. Karma isn't a guarantee of immediate fairness, but a reflection of the seeds we plant through our thoughts, words, and actions. When we let go of the need for instant results, we free ourselves to focus on what truly matters, our intentions and efforts. Consider the story of a young monk who spent months cultivating a beautiful garden. Day after day, he nurtured the soil, watered the plants, and watched as vibrant flowers and lush greenery began to bloom. But just as the garden reached its peak, a violent storm swept through, destroying everything. What did the monk do? He didn't curse the storm or wallow in despair. Instead, he quietly began to replant, pouring the same care and patience into rebuilding as he had into creating it the first time. When asked how he could remain so calm, he replied, "The storm is my teacher, not my enemy." For him, the lesson wasn't about controlling what life throws at you, but about how you respond. This perspective challenges the way many of us approach setbacks. When life feels unfair, our first instinct might be to resist, to push back against the injustice we perceive. But resistance often leads to frustration, not resolution. The monk's story teaches us that fairness isn't life's currency. Adaptability is. When we stop expecting the world to align with our ideals, we develop the resilience to thrive regardless of circumstances. This doesn't mean we should accept every misfortune passively, but rather that we should focus our energy on what we can control, our actions, our mindset, and our ability to keep moving forward. Think of life as a game of chess. Sometimes the pieces are stacked against you, and no amount of strategizing will guarantee a win. But the best players don't waste time lamenting the unfairness of the board. They adapt. They look for the next move, no matter how small, and they take it. In the same way, life doesn't promise a level playing field, but it does reward those who persevere with clarity and determination. This principle is echoed in nature. Picture a tree that loses its leaves in the harshness of winter. It doesn't give up and wither away. It remains rooted, waiting patiently for spring to arrive. When the time comes, it blooms again, not because the world became fair, but because it adapted to the rhythm of life. We, too, can find strength in adapting, in recognizing that challenges are not barriers, but opportunities to grow. Of course, this is easier said than done. When faced with adversity, it's natural to feel overwhelmed, to question why the effort we pour into something doesn't yield the results we expect. But the truth is, life isn't a transactional exchange. Your kindness, your hard work, your love, they're not wasted simply because they don't bring immediate rewards. They contribute to something larger, shaping the person you become and the world you influence. Take a moment to reflect on your own experiences. Have you ever poured your heart into something only to see it fall apart? Maybe it was a project you worked tirelessly on, a relationship you gave everything to, or a dream that didn't come to fruition. In those moments, it's tempting to see your efforts as futile. But what if those efforts weren't wasted? What if they were preparing you for something greater, teaching you resilience, patience, or a deeper understanding of yourself? Buddhism teaches that suffering often arises not from the circumstances themselves, but from our resistance to them. When we cling to the idea that life should be fair, every setback feels like a personal affront. But when we release that expectation, we create space for acceptance and growth. It's not about giving up on justice or progress. It's about recognizing that fairness is not always within our control, but our response to life's challenges is. This mindset doesn't just help us cope with hardship, it transforms the way we see the world. Instead of viewing obstacles as unfair roadblocks, we begin to see them as teachers. The storm that destroyed the monk's garden wasn't an act of malice. It was an opportunity for him to practice patience and resilience. In the same way, the difficulties we face are not punishments, but invitations to grow. They push us out of our comfort zones, forcing us to adapt and discover strengths we didn't know we had. Imagine a storm sweeping through your own life. It might uproot your plans, shatter your expectations, and leave you standing in uncertainty. You have a choice. You can shake your fist at the sky, lamenting the unfairness of it all. Or you can start picking up the pieces, planting new seeds, and trusting that growth will come in time. Complaining about life's unfairness is like yelling at the clouds. It changes nothing. But shifting your focus to what you can control, to the next step you can take, empowers you to move forward. The beauty of this approach is that it doesn't deny the reality of life's challenges, it reframes them. When we stop expecting life to conform to our desires, we begin to see the value in the process, not just the outcome. The monk's garden wasn't defined by the storm that destroyed it, but by the care and intention he put into rebuilding it. Similarly, your life isn't defined by the unfairness you encounter, but by the way you choose to respond. In letting go of the expectation of fairness, you discover a deeper strength within yourself. You realize that while you can't control the storms, you can control how you weather them. And in that resilience, you find a kind of freedom, a freedom to live fully, not bound by the need for life to be perfect, but empowered by your ability to adapt and grow. 3. Not everyone will like you. As we come to terms with the reality that life isn't always fair, another truth naturally follows. Not everyone will like you. It's a notion that might feel unsettling, especially in a world where approval seems to be the currency of belonging. We grow up wanting to fit in, to be seen, and to be accepted. But no matter how kind, thoughtful, or accommodating you are, there will always be people who don't resonate with you, and that's perfectly okay. Think about it for a moment. Have you ever met someone you just didn't click with? Maybe they were perfectly pleasant, even admirable, but for reasons you couldn't fully articulate, the connection just wasn't there. This isn't a reflection of their worth or yours. It's simply the natural variation of human experience. Yet, when we find ourselves on the receiving end of indifference or rejection, it's easy to take it personally. We twist ourselves into knots, wondering what we did wrong or what we could change to be more likable. But chasing universal approval is not only exhausting, it's impossible. In Buddhism, the practice of metta, or loving kindness, offers a way to navigate this reality. Metta encourages us to extend compassion freely to all beings, not because we expect anything in return, but because kindness is its own reward. This perspective shifts the focus from seeking approval to simply being a source of goodness in the world. When coupled with upekkha, or equanimity, we learn to let go of the emotional weight of others' opinions. Equanimity doesn't mean indifference. It means maintaining a balanced mind, one that isn't shaken by praise or criticism. Consider the story of a man who approached the Buddha, shouting insults and accusations. Most of us, when faced with such hostility, would feel compelled to defend ourselves, to fight back, or to internalize the words. But the Buddha responded with remarkable calmness. He asked the man, "If someone offers you a gift and you do not accept it, who owns the gift?" The man, confused, replied, "The one who offered it." The Buddha smiled and said, "Exactly. I do not accept your insults. They remain with you." This story holds profound wisdom. It reminds us that we don't have to accept every judgment or criticism that comes our way. Other people's opinions are like gifts. We can choose whether or not to take them. And when we decline to carry the burden of someone else's negativity, we create space for peace within ourselves. Imagine how freeing it would be to stop striving for universal approval, to release the need to shape yourself into someone you think others will like. Instead, you could focus on being authentically you, knowing that the right people, the ones who value your true self, will naturally gravitate toward you. The relationships that matter most are built not on perfection, but on mutual respect and genuine connection. This isn't to say that we should disregard all feedback or dismiss the feelings of others. Part of living with compassion means being open to growth and understanding. But there's a difference between being considerate and contorting yourself to fit someone else's mold. The former enriches your relationships, the latter erodes your sense of self. Think of it like planting a garden. You can't make every seed grow, no matter how much care you give it. Some won't take root, and that's not your fault. It's simply the nature of things. But the seeds that do grow will flourish under your attention, becoming vibrant and strong. Relationships are much the same. Not every connection will blossom, and that's okay. What matters is nurturing the ones that do. When we let go of the pressure to be liked by everyone, we reclaim a tremendous amount of energy. energy that can be redirected toward the people and pursuits that truly matter. We stop wasting time on superficial approval and start investing in deeper, more meaningful connections. And ironically, this is what often makes us more likable, not by trying to please everyone, but by living with authenticity and purpose. Reflect for a moment. How much of your energy has been spent worrying about what others think? How many opportunities have you missed because you were afraid of being judged? When you let go of the need for universal approval, you free yourself to live a life that's true to who you are. And in doing so, you give others permission to do the same. Buddhism teaches that our suffering often comes not from external events, but from our attachment to how we think things should be. When we cling to the idea that we must be liked by everyone, we set ourselves up for disappointment. But when we release that attachment, we discover a profound sense of freedom. We realize that it's not our job to make everyone happy, nor is it possible. Our job is to live with integrity, kindness, and self-respect. Imagine walking into a room, knowing that some people might not like you, and being completely at peace with that. Imagine speaking your truth, even if it doesn't resonate with everyone. This isn't arrogance, it's self-assurance. It's knowing that your worth isn't determined by the number of people who agree with you or validate you. It's knowing that you are enough, just as you are. The Buddha's wisdom shows us the way. When we offer compassion without expecting anything in return, we liberate ourselves from the need for external validation. When we practice equanimity, we develop the resilience to remain grounded, regardless of others' opinions. And when we focus on authenticity rather than approval, we attract the kind of relationships that truly enrich our lives. Life is too short to waste on trying to win over those who may never see your worth. Instead, let your energy flow toward the people who uplift you, the passions that ignite you, and the values that define you. Not everyone will like you, and that's okay. What matters most is that you like yourself, that you live in alignment with your truth, and that you share your unique light with the world. For change is inevitable. As we let go of the need to please everyone and learn to live authentically, we uncover another truth that underpins all of life. Everything changes. Nothing stays the same. Not our successes, not our failures, not even the pain we endure. This truth, though uncomfortable, is at the heart of Buddhist philosophy. The concept of anicca, or impermanence, teaches us that change is not an obstacle but an inherent part of existence. When we resist change, clinging to the way things were or the way we wish they would stay, we create suffering. But when we accept change, we open ourselves to the possibilities it brings. Think about your own life for a moment. How many things have you held on to, hoping they would never end? Maybe it was a relationship, a job, or a stage of life where everything felt just right. And yet, no matter how tightly you tried to hold on, change came anyway. Perhaps it arrived as an unwelcome disruption, or perhaps it slipped in so gradually that you didn't notice until things were no longer the same. Either way, the reality of change is inescapable. It is the thread that runs through every moment, quietly reminding us that nothing lasts forever. This truth can be difficult to accept, especially when change feels like loss. After all, we often associate change with endings, of comfort, stability, or happiness. But in Buddhism, change is not viewed as a loss, but as a natural cycle of growth and renewal. Just as the seasons shift and a tree loses its leaves in winter, only to bloom again in spring, we too are constantly evolving. The key is to see change not as an enemy, but as a teacher, guiding us to new beginnings. There is a story of a man whose home was destroyed in a fire. In the days that followed, he was overwhelmed with grief, feeling as though his entire world had been reduced to ashes. Everything he had built, everything he had cherished, was gone. But as the months passed and he began to rebuild, something shifted within him. He realized that the fire, though devastating, had also cleared the way for something new. It forced him to let go of his attachments and reimagine what his life could be. In embracing impermanence, he found a sense of freedom. The fire was not just destruction, it was transformation. This story mirrors the cycles we all experience in life. Whether it's the end of a relationship, the loss of a job, or the conclusion of a chapter we once loved, Change often feels like the rug being pulled out from under us. But when we step back and look at the bigger picture, we see that endings are also beginnings. The space left by what was lost becomes fertile ground for growth. The question is not whether change will come, it will. The question is how we will respond when it does. When we resist change, clinging to what is familiar, we create suffering. Imagine trying to hold back a tidal wave with your bare hands. It's exhausting and futile. But if you let go and allow the wave to carry you, you might find yourself on a new shore, one you never imagined reaching. This is the power of acceptance. It doesn't mean we have to like every change that comes our way, but it does mean we stop fighting against the inevitable and instead learn to flow with it. This perspective doesn't come easily, especially when we're in the midst of upheaval. It's natural to mourn what we've lost, to feel the sting of impermanence. But Buddhism teaches that even this grief is impermanent. Just as the pain of loss arises, it will also pass. And as it does, it creates space for something new to emerge. This doesn't mean we should dismiss our emotions or rush through them. On the contrary, accepting change requires us to fully feel and honor our experiences, allowing them to shape us in meaningful ways. Reflecting on impermanence can also deepen our gratitude for the present moment. Knowing that nothing lasts forever, we begin to appreciate the fleeting beauty of life. A sunset is more breathtaking because it doesn't linger. A conversation with a loved one feels more precious because we know it won't be repeated in exactly the same way. When we embrace impermanence, we stop taking life for granted and start savoring its ephemeral nature. Think of a butterfly emerging from its cocoon. The process is neither easy nor comfortable. It's a struggle. But without that struggle, the butterfly wouldn't develop the strength it needs to fly. In the same way, the changes we resist are often the ones that prepare us for growth. They push us out of our comfort zones, forcing us to adapt and discover resilience we didn't know we had. What feels like a loss in the moment often turns out to be a stepping stone to something greater. The beauty of impermanence is that it applies not only to what we cherish but also to what we fear. Just as joy is fleeting, so is pain. The challenges we face, no matter how daunting, are not permanent. This knowledge can be a source of immense comfort during difficult times. When we remember that this too shall pass, we find the strength to endure, knowing that better days are ahead. Change is inevitable, but it is also transformative. When we stop seeing it as a threat and start embracing it as a natural part of life, we unlock a profound sense of freedom. We realize that our happiness doesn't depend on holding on to what was, but on being open to what is and what could be. Life is a constant process of letting go and beginning again, a dance of impermanence that invites us to grow with every step. As you reflect on the changes in your own life, consider how they have shaped you. What have you learned from the moments when everything shifted? How have you grown because of the things you thought you couldn't bear to lose? In accepting change, we don't just survive it, we transform through it. And in that transformation, we find not just resilience, but a deeper connection to the flow of life itself. 5. Happiness is a choice. As we come to terms with the impermanence of life, a deeper truth begins to emerge. Our happiness is not dictated by the circumstances around us, but by the perspective we choose to adopt. In a world where change is constant and control often feels elusive, this truth can feel both empowering and daunting. The good news is that happiness doesn't have to depend on everything falling into place perfectly. Instead, it can be cultivated, nurtured, and chosen, even in the midst of life's inevitable chaos. Buddhism teaches that happiness is not something that happens to us. It is something we create through sati, or mindfulness. Mindfulness is the practice of being fully present in the moment, observing it without judgment. It's not about ignoring life's struggles or pretending that everything is fine. Rather, it's about finding beauty and meaning in the here and now, even when things don't go according to plan. Happiness, in this sense, is not a fleeting emotion tied to external conditions, but a state of inner peace that we can return to again and again. Consider the story of two travelers caught in a sudden rainstorm. Both are soaked to the bone, their plans disrupted by the unexpected downpour. The first traveler curses the sky, frustrated by the inconvenience and discomfort. The second, however, takes a different approach. Instead of focusing on what went wrong, they lift their face to the clouds, feeling the cool drops on their skin and marveling at the beauty of the storm. The difference between these two travelers isn't their circumstances, it's their perspective. One is consumed by resistance, while the other embraces the moment for what it is. This simple story illustrates a profound truth. Happiness is not about avoiding the rain, but about learning how to dance in it. Life will always bring challenges, setbacks, and moments of discomfort. If we tie our happiness to the idea of a perfect life, we will always be chasing something out of reach. But when we shift our focus from what's lacking to what's present, we begin to uncover joy in the most unexpected places. Mindfulness invites us to slow down and truly experience the moments that make up our lives. It's easy to get caught up in the hustle, constantly striving for the next goal or longing for the next big achievement. But in doing so, we often overlook the simple joys right in front of us. The warmth of a morning sunbeam, the laughter of a loved one, the satisfying crunch of an apple. These moments may seem small, but they are the building blocks of a happy life. Happiness through mindfulness doesn't mean ignoring life's difficulties. It means facing them with an open heart and a clear mind. When we practice mindfulness, we learn to observe our thoughts and emotions without becoming overwhelmed by them. For example, when frustration arises, instead of reacting impulsively, we can pause and ask ourselves, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling this way? What can I learn from this moment? This simple act of self-awareness creates space for growth and transformation. Gratitude is another powerful element of mindfulness that contributes to happiness. When we focus on what we have rather than what we lack, we cultivate a sense of abundance and contentment. Even in challenging times, there is always something to be grateful for: a supportive friend, a moment of peace, the opportunity to start anew. Gratitude shifts our perspective from scarcity to sufficiency, reminding us that joy often lies not in having more, but in appreciating what already is. Reflecting on this, think about your own life. Have you ever experienced a moment of happiness that seemed to come out of nowhere? A sudden feeling of contentment that didn't depend on anything external? Perhaps it was during a quiet walk in nature, or while sharing a heartfelt conversation with someone you care about. These moments remind us that happiness is not something we need to chase. It's something we can uncover within ourselves when we're present. Mindfulness also teaches us to embrace life's imperfections. In a culture that often glorifies perfection and achievement, it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking we need to fix ourselves or our circumstances to be happy. But happiness doesn't come from perfection, it comes from acceptance. When we stop fighting against what is and start embracing the messiness of life, we open ourselves to a deeper, more enduring sense of peace. Imagine a tree growing in the middle of a rocky landscape. It doesn't curse the stones around its roots or long for softer soil. Instead, it adapts, finding strength in its unique environment. In the same way, we can learn to thrive not despite our challenges, but because of them. Happiness isn't about erasing imperfections, it's about finding beauty in them. Of course, this doesn't mean happiness is always easy to choose. There will be days when life feels heavy, when the challenges seem insurmountable. On those days, mindfulness doesn't ask us to ignore our pain, but to meet it with compassion. By acknowledging our struggles without judgment, we create space for healing and resilience. Over time, this practice becomes a source of strength, helping us navigate life's ups and downs with greater ease. Ultimately, happiness is a practice. It's a choice we make every day, not a destination we reach once and for all. Some days, that choice will feel effortless. Other days, it will require intention and effort. But the more we choose happiness through mindfulness, gratitude, and acceptance, the more it becomes a natural part of who we are. As you reflect on this idea, consider how you might bring more mindfulness into your own life. Could you take a few moments each day to simply breathe and notice the present moment? Could you start a gratitude practice, listing 3 things you're thankful for each evening? Could you learn to approach life's challenges with curiosity instead of resistance? These small steps can have a profound impact, gradually shifting your perspective and deepening your sense of joy. Happiness isn't about waiting for the stars to align or for life to be perfect. It's about finding the beauty in what is, even when it's messy, unpredictable, or imperfect. It's about lifting your face to the rain and marveling at its coolness, instead of wishing for sunshine. And perhaps most importantly, it's about realizing that the power to be happy has been within you all along. As we reflect on these 5 profound truths, non-self, karma, compassion, impermanence, and mindfulness, it's clear that they hold the power to reshape the way we experience life. At first, they may feel uncomfortable, even daunting, but within their simplicity lies profound liberation. They remind us that happiness is not about avoiding challenges or seeking perfection, but about meeting life as it is and finding meaning in the process. Buddhist philosophy invites us to look at these truths not as limitations but as gateways to clarity, resilience, and peace. When you begin to embrace these principles, you might notice a subtle but powerful transformation in how you view the world and your place in it. The weight of self-importance, the sting of unfairness, and the ache of rejection gradually give way to freedom and understanding. The fear of change becomes an opportunity to grow, and dissatisfaction is replaced with gratitude for the present moment. Life may not become easier, but it will feel lighter, more purposeful, and profoundly fulfilling. Imagine what it would be like to move through life with this perspective. To wake up each day not burdened by the need to control everything but open to the lessons and beauty each moment has to offer. To find joy in the fleeting, the imperfect, and even the challenging. This is not a distant goal but a journey that begins here and now. With a single step, choosing to look inward and embrace life as it unfolds. Take a moment to consider, which of these truths resonated with you the most? Was it the idea of letting go of self-importance and finding freedom in non-self? Or perhaps it was the reminder that fairness is less about the world and more about how we respond to it. Maybe it was the practice of offering compassion without expecting anything in return, or the wisdom of embracing impermanence with an open heart. Or was it the realization that happiness is not something we wait for, but something we choose, moment by moment? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share in the comments which truth spoke to you and why. Your insights might inspire someone else who is also navigating these truths. Let's create a space for positivity and mutual growth, a community where we support and encourage one another on this shared journey of life. Thank you for spending your time with me today, for opening your heart to these ideas, and for taking the first steps toward a more meaningful and joyful existence. If you found this video helpful or thought-provoking, don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss out on future content. And if there's someone in your life who might benefit from hearing these truths, consider sharing this video with them. It could be the spark they need to start their own journey. Remember, happiness is not a destination. It's a choice we make every single day. The path is yours to walk, and with every step, you're transforming not just your own life but the world around you. Thank you again for watching, and I look forward to seeing your reflections in the comments. Until next time, take care of yourself and the people you love, and may your journey be filled with peace, purpose, and joy.